So anybody that's a co-host, you might have to just hit okay. And so welcome all the people who have just joined us. We are so darn excited to have you here tonight. Um, and I want to thank all the people who went to the retreat. Grace isn't here. Would anybody else like to share their experience at the retreat or just any little blurb about it that went? Anybody, since Grace isn't here? Anybody?
Well, it was,
Well, you have to either talk loud or come over here.
well, it was.
Come on, sweetie. But our microphone is over here. As you can see, we have a whole wonderful group here at the Edina Senior Center. So please, Nanita, have a seat. And tell us a little bit about the wonderful time you had at the retreat.
It was actually really good. Should I start with the food? It was, actually, there wasn't too bad. They always do a really good job on the food. But there were so many beautiful pieces. Somebody did a star with a rabbit on it. It was so pretty. Who was that? Marlene Morris. And I don't suppose you brought it. I do have a picture, but it's not going to show up. It was a star, and it had, I think, 6 or 8 sides to each side. It was so beautiful. Andrea was there, Andrea Turini, and she had some beautiful pieces. We, of course, were from Wednesday to Sunday. We had to leave a little early because they had a new group coming in on Monday and they needed to clean. I don't know why, because we end up having to clean everything ourselves anyway. So
only talk about the good parts, Nanita.
okay, so you don't want to hear about the bunk beds?
Well, let's just talk about the mattress fund.
Oh, yes, yes. They are getting new mattresses because the ones they have now are bricks.
They're bad.
Yeah, they're really bad. They estimate $18,000 to replace the mattresses. We have voted to, if at the next retreat, we're on the registration form, they're going to have a line if you want to donate. And the UMBS will match it. So dollar for dollar.
Will you show your necklace closer up, please? Because we have a request from the gallery over there. Well, the camera's right here though, but yes.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Nanita. It's so pretty. That was my
And
request.
she has
That
a
is really
bracelet to
pretty.
match. I don't know if you
Yeah.
noticed it.
Right.
Yes,
The
and this
term
is,
was amaze balls.
this was, this was, is done with 15, 11, and 8O beads. And it's Cellini or Cellini spiral. And so, yeah, I never know. So anyway, the necklace, I just decided that I was not going to do a clasp. So it's just an over the head because sometimes with arthritic hands, it's hard to manipulate the clasp. So I like things that are just going to go over. Back to the bead retreat. So if anybody wants to make a donation to the mattress fund, they can also send it to Camp Wapagasset. And if you need the address, you can just put in a request, either Jan or myself or Becky or someone, and we can give you the address to Camp Wapagasset. But we had a fabulous time. We had 4 classes. I'm sorry.
When is the fall retreat?
First week in September, and I'm not sure
So right around Labor Day weekend-ish, right?
Wednesday after Labor Day. So it's from Wednesday to Sunday. 3rd through the 7th, I hear in the background. So just come and we had 4 classes. I think Andrea did 1, Rita Lewinsky did 2 fabulous classes, and I did a refresher on the slinky herringbone, and I had 4 people. Becky, who was doing a refresher, and 3 people who were learning. We had a great time, and lots of bead shopping. Come on.
Join the fall retreat. All right, now
Thank
we
you.
have Becky.
For anybody that hasn't gone to retreat, you don't know what you're missing. It's a whole weekend. You don't have to cook. You don't, you don't have to do anything. You can stay in your pajamas if you want to.
And no
But,
bra.
but
No bra.
yeah, no bra. But the best part is getting to know the other beaters. And I come home so inspired with the things that I want to do from looking at what other people did. It's a wonderful experience, even if you can only come for one day. And the other thing that I want to say is, I am membership, and there are still about 40 people that have not paid their membership. At the end of April, if you are not paid, you will no longer be a member. The membership is what are one of the biggest things that allow us to have these meetings. So thank you.
Thanks, Becky.
All right, now we
Hey,
have
Becky.
Marlene. Oh. All about the state fair. It's
Yes.
coming up.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
I know.
I have been talking with Samantha at the state fair. Evidently, they are revamping the inside of the creative activity building. And it sounds like they are looking at maybe taking back the display case to put judged items in and not just have a display of beaded work. She's gonna let me know when they make that decision. And so we may or may not have the display case again.
Okay.
I will try to keep on it and see, as soon as I find out whether we have it or not, I will get it out there so people can start making pieces. And if we don't have it, start making pieces to enter in the judged events. We are now adding premium money to the senior beadwork. There's 2 classes in the senior division. And I believe it's necklaces and then open beading. And so we will be adding premium money to those 2 classes where we never did before. So just look up the senior division and go down. I don't remember the exact number, but it's about in the middle of the listings of the senior classes. So I will keep everybody posted as far as whether we get the display case or not. And if we do, then we'll have to set up a drop-off point and a deadline to have them submitted. And we will try to get them set up again. So, thank you.
The theme is 1 bead at a time.
Oh, yes. The theme this year will be 1 bead at a time.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Any other announcements from here? I kind of think that is it. And so we are so darn excited to have you all join here. We've got lots of more folks joining us. And so, oh my gosh, hi Renelle. Oh wow. Haven't seen you in ages. So glad to see we've got new members too. Becky, did you remember how many new members do we have this month? Just one. So tell your friends, we want to really get people to join our group. And so Paulette has an announcement here. And so let's spotlight Paulette for everybody.
Hi, everybody. I usually go to the retreat every single year. I couldn't go this year, so it is fabulous. So I just want to give a plug for that. Regarding your membership, I think Becky could probably tell you a little bit more, but your membership is due a year, 12 months after when you originally done it. We don't have a specific, like some people say our membership begins, June 1st or whatever, or January. So the membership is based on when you joined. So if you do have questions regarding when your membership is due, you can contact Becky and she can help you figure that out. So there was a question in the chat.
Super. Thank you so much. Yeah, we're all on our own time zones. And so, Hannah, if we've got no more announcements, then oh my gosh, we're so darn excited to get to our featured presenter. Oh my gosh, Jen. And so, Hannah, would you like to introduce our speaker tonight?
I would love to. That would be great. I'm so excited to be able to introduce Jen Segrest as our featured speaker tonight. But before I actually tell you about her bio, I want to show you that she will also be doing our Saturday Bead Live on the 12th of this month. We have a free Saturday Bead Live that we go ahead and show. Oh, thank you, Jen. And we have a Saturday Bead Live that we do once a month that is live on Facebook, and it is free for everybody. And Jen has agreed to both teach for us and to speak tonight. And as you can see from her having fun with some little pins there, it is a pin cushion that is made out of embroidery, floss, and felt. And I actually will share, I think, a picture a little bit. Maybe you can see that one a little bit closer up. So that will be for our Saturday Bead Live. We're going to be making some bottle cap pin cushions. And she also, oh, there's a nice one. So there is a one that she has fully embroidered. So Jen of Enon, Ohio, has been documenting and researching European beadwork spanning the 10th to 17th centuries for over 30 years. And I was really excited to find her work and on Etsy. And from her work, I then found out all this information about her. She started as a member of the SCA, which stands for Society of Creative Anachronisms, which is an international medieval recreation and research nonprofit organization. She started in the early 90s and began researching beadwork within the time period, and she found nothing. So she started hunting for it. And this has grown exponentially. She started medievalbeads.com, which I believe we're going to be seeing a little bit of, aren't we, Jen? Great. Oh, Jen, you are muted right now.
Yeah,
There
we're
you
going to be working pretty much exclusively on the site because everything I have is there.
go.
So
Right.
why
So
reinvent the wheel?
yeah, it's exciting. So anyway, 25 years later, so she started this website right at the beginning of websites even starting, and her website now holds over 200 examples of beadwork. 120 of them are still extant examples, and most are hidden from public view in museum storerooms, making it the largest single research on the topic. And she has on our website, on the members page, she has invited anybody to contact her and has left her phone number and her email. And I will go ahead as she begins to talk. I'll put those into the chat and also put her medievalbeads.com link. And also, do you mind if I put a link to your website on Etsy?
Oh, no, that's fine.
Okay, great. All
I
right,
think there's
take it
actually, I
away,
think
Jen. I'm
there's
so
actually
excited
one
that
on
you.
the, I think there's actually one on the site too. I think there's like SCA store or something, and that takes you to like my bead store and stuff too. So,
Oh, lovely.
well,
Well,
not my bead
take it
store,
away.
my Etsy store. But yeah, so I think there's a link on the site as well because I had the room. Why not?
Oh, absolutely. We're so excited that you've joined us. Thank you so much.
I think
And
this will be fun.
everybody, here's Jen.
Hi, everybody. I'm just going to go ahead and use my site. Like I said, everything's already there. If you have questions, do the hand up thing. Feel free to, if you're on video, just sort of butt in. I'll be fine with that. I see. I just share screen now, right? Okay. Let's see. Haha. Okay. So here's my site. All right, let's get that over there. And when you get inside is where's where all the magic is. Okay, so the if you want to see how much stuff is on here, you go to everything. And this is everything that's on the site in order of it being added to the site. So the newest stuff is always at the top. And we're going to be covering several pieces on here. But just in case you want to get an idea of the breadth and the scope of it, and I've added quite a bit recently. All these bags have been a recent rabbit hole that I've been diving into. So about 15 of these bags are new compared to what I had. But we're going to start by centuries. But over here in the section, you can see just the extant items. If you want to see just what's existing, this, I try not to do what I choose for a source. I don't do a whole lot of allegorical stuff. I try to do portraits, try to stick with portraits because usually that's most grounded in reality. So you won't see me do a whole lot of stuff out of book of hours and illuminations and stuff, because often it's just a bored artist making things pretty. So I really do try to stick with when I don't have an extant item, trying to stick with a solid secondary source. And then you can search by type of item as well as by century. So we're just going to go century by century here. And I'm just kind of going to show you the progression of sort of how it started, and then where it really, where it sort of goes through Europe, where it sort of arrives in places. So we're going to start with the early stuff here. Not a whole lot early on. Probably the closest that I've got to bead embroidery is this bag here from the 11th century. Unfortunately, sometimes I have good pictures, sometimes I don't. Sometimes they're not very big when they blow up, as you can tell. So sometimes I only have what I have. This is probably the best picture of this. But silk drawstring bag. These bags like this are really common throughout the entire period, even going up until the late 1700s, early 1800s. Everybody needed a bag. And but this was supposed to be a reliquary pouch. I don't know whether that's true, but the fact that it's in such good shape probably means it is, for as old as it is, because this is coming from probably the mid 1200s. But this is, and at the start it's all German, and at the start it's also all evangelical, so it's all church stuff within the church. There's hangings and copes and miters, and things that the priests and the abbots and the cardinals wore. I have a few things for kings, but mostly church people at the very, very beginning. So until we get to about the 14th century, maybe 15th century, then it starts to spread out from there. And that's sort of when Germany sort of stops doing beadwork. And this is all German. One side thing that I do on the site, I also sort of have a sort of an interest in these stamped plates. So I'm not going to talk about those, but it's kind of like a stamped sequins that they would use, and you'll see them on some pieces. So since they sort of appear in some beadwork pieces, I sort of also cover those. This is probably, I try personally trying to focus more on glass seed when I can get it. That doesn't really enter the scene until probably the next century. So we're going to talk with pearl on this one. Lots of pearl, as you can tell. No glass seed at all in this early on. Italy is credited with inventing the seed bead, I think, in the 1400s. Well, I have it earlier than that in Germany. So I'm not sure whether Italy's just got a really good marketing department or that Germany's glassworks started making beads at some point, which is also, I think, also possibly probable. Although I can't find anything on that. I've been hunting research papers for years and haven't been able to find anything on glass seed beads within medieval Europe. I mean, I know they did them in India. I know they did them later on. They're making them, of course, in Czechoslovakia. which is, you know, at this point of the, it's in the Germanic regions, let's say. Because Bohemia was part of Germany, then it wasn't, then it was, you know, the whole map of Germany. If you ever want to dive into a rabbit hole, go look at the map of Germany throughout time. And it's a crazy quilt for a good 400 years. And it's like in 5 minute span, boom, boom, this guy belongs over here now, and this one's broken off, and this one's got merged in, and it's nuts. So sometimes a lot of this stuff is a little odd when it gets switched around, but yeah, this one's all seed pearls. Germany had, you know, like a lot of Europe, has tons of very shallow streams, and that's where you would get the seed pearls from the little clams and little oysters that are just living in the freshwater streams. Um, and there's some museums that have more of this work than others. And like when I get to Halberstadt, I'll show you a lot of the pieces from Halberstadt. Because they have a collection unlike any other. If you really want to if you want to make a bead trip to Germany, the place to go would be Halberstadt, because they have about a dozen pieces of medieval beadwork, just in one museum alone. And that's my personal dream place. This one's a significant piece in that this one isn't a church piece. This was for the Holy Roman Emperor. And there's a pair of gloves and a pair of shoes that go along with this as well. And I don't know why they're not in this section. I think it's the same person. I could be wrong right now. But as well as having gold work, there's your pearl work, and they always use a lot of metal and enameled plates throughout period as well. Like I said, we haven't gotten to glass seed yet, but we're getting to it real soon here. And there's some of the gold work. You can't really see that well. But there's the pearl, and you know, and the pearl work, it almost goes without saying, that's the most common that we're going to find, until we get to the later period. That's the only piece I have on that. Unfortunately, some pictures are just not very big. There we go, but still not big. Let's see if I can find a big one. That's a little better. And those do appear, that does appear to be knotted in between, I think. At least on the sleeves, which would make more sense on the sleeves than it would anyplace else. Okay, so most of this is, like I said, is almost all in Germany. And that's what really sort of depresses people in my medieval society, because they all want to be England or Irish or French or Scottish. And it's like, no, England didn't enter the beadwork realm until about the early 1600s. And then they went crazy. They went absolutely crazy, which you'll see. But so I'm going to go ahead and move out of the 12th and start getting into some good stuff. So you know, it's all clearly evangelical, a little bit of nobility involved in it, but this is all still evangelical work. And we're going to go in the 13th century. Things start to get a little more exciting. This is where the glass seeds come in. And I don't know where to start on this one, because there's so much good stuff. I'm going to start, I think, over here, because I've seen these in person. This and another piece I'll go to next. I've seen in person. I went to the V&A and got in the back room, and I could have touched it if they would have let me, but I was like an inch away. So let's get down here to these. This piece here, which is sometimes shown with these, it's not connected. It's not part of the same piece. In fact, I'll show you. These two squares are at the V&A, and the Victoria and Albert, for those who don't know, the Victoria and Albert in London, which is the sort of the decorative arts museum. of Britain. And I'm going to get in here and show you this. Okay, so I have recreated, because there's a piece in there's a piece in Germany. This, unfortunately, this is the only picture I have of it currently. And this piece is at the Halberstadt Museum. And as you notice, there's two big squares that are missing here, as well as round plaques. What I assume are round plaques, because that's what it looks like. And this is a recreation I did with the pieces from the V&A. The V&A has actually entered these pictures into their collection with the previous two heads, to demonstrate that that's where these belong. And these are some of the pictures that I've taken. Um, and the thing that's different about the beadwork than what we currently do, they did this on parchment. And if I can get in closer here, I don't know if I can or not. Can I get in closer? Okay. You can see the underdrawing. So a lot of monasteries, as most people know, did a lot of scribal work. What people don't know is Germany was also very, very well known for having co-ed monasteries. So they'd have a compound. This half would be, nuns. This half would be monks. They'd be sharing garden and cooking duties, and they would have a commune, essentially, a co-ed commune. And so all this beadwork was done mostly by nuns, from everything we can tell. And so it would be natural, she walks over to the scriptorium. I need to make an altar hanging. Here's what I want to do. And somebody draws it out for it, hands her a piece of parchment. She takes it back and she starts stitching through the parchment. And then that piece is trimmed up really really, really tight. And then they stitch that onto the grounding fabric, which is always silk. Because, you don't want to bother God with linen. And there we go. There we go. I can make it bigger. And but you can see all these little couching stitches. So they had the beads strung. They did do some single bead work, but for the most part, it looks like it was strung. And then they would couch over them. And then these little round areas where what's called bracteates, or those little plaques, those little gold plaques, that's where those would go. And this was all filled with pearls, this area around the outside. And usually even though there's this gold here of some sort, it's probably more like brass. But even though there's these gold beads, they would strip them and loot them for the pearls. And they did take the plaques, because sometimes the plaques were actually gold. And then they had some larger beads here sometimes, or smaller little plaques there in the corners as well. And but yeah, so this whole face was all covered in pearls, and the outside was pearls, and with gold panels. And the same thing with the next face. And then this one I like, is one of my favorites, because it's got the coral beads, and they are real coral. Let me see if I can get in on that one again too. You can't really tell here, but there are the striations from the coral on those orange beads. And so it's really easy to tell that they are actual coral. Which is it's very cool to see in person. They're about 4 inches square, so somewhere around that area. I'd probably say maybe 5. And it's been a while since I've seen them. And let me see here. So I did some overlays with these two pieces and the piece that's still attached. This is a colorized black and white photo. Unfortunately, it's the only picture I have in color. Took this colorized picture, and I did an overlay with the two existing pieces from the V&A, and I call them the Bee Gees, because they look like the Bee Gees. They really look like the three members of the Bee Gees. So that's why I've given them names. There's Maurice, Robin, and Barry. Barry has the beard and the luxurious hair, and I overlaid them. And as anybody who works beads knows, everybody works their beads in almost a signature way. And by laying these over top of each other, matching the beads, matching the layouts, they're definitely off the same piece. The way the corners are worked, the rows, the amount of beads, going around the corners is like exactly the same. And they're worked exactly the same way. And I impressed a VNA enough that they give my name out when people ask about this piece. This was a little graphic that I'm sort of showing sort of how the beads match up. You can't really see that. I'm going to keep going. Okay, so, but this piece has been sort of like the focus of like at least 15 years of research, because it was a groundbreaking piece for me, because it was one of the first pieces I found that had colored seed, and it's just been really really amazing to study. And we have more with coral. This one here is chock full of coral as well. This miter, which I believe at one point was in Chicago at the museum once. Um, let's see if I can get a good picture. Here's a good close-up picture. Oh, why are these all so small? Nope, that's it. Um, but this is pretty much just coral and pearl. Um, and just tons of coral on this one, and some blue beads. Yeah, there are some blue. And everyone, and it's purely seed, although this one seems to have some little bugle beads. Um, I have some bugle beads earlier in one of the first centuries. There's like a bag that has some netting on it, and that's the first time we see bugle beads really. Um, but just absolutely gorgeous. There we go. That's a good shot. And you can see the gold foiling. That's the backer of this, and they're just stitching right straight through it. Um, and there, you don't see it here, but there are some more bugly beads later on in areas of it. Okay. And I have a lot of miters actually. There's quite a few miters. Um, this one is let's let's see, where am I going to go? Okay, let's go to church stuff in this century, and then I'll switch over to the hat and the hat, the crown, and the shoes are secular, as is this cap there, but that's pearl, so I'm not going to bother with that too much. This piece is also from Halberstadt, as is the piece next to it. This is a huge piece. It's the only thing I know of larger is in a place called Keb, Czechoslovakia, and which is right on the border, that little nipple that comes in of Czechoslovakia into Germany, and Keb's right there. And there's one that's big, it's ginormous, and it's like 4 or 5 times the size of this. I mean, you can see from the scale how big this is, because you know what like a size 11 bead is. And that's what these mostly are. The size of these beads are like about a size 11. Sometimes they go up a little higher, might go up to like a 9. Sometimes they didn't get, and they would use those for accents, those larger beads. But for the most part, it's a size 9, it's a size 11, maybe a 10, depending on the type of bead. And so it's really easy to do recreated work with it, because it's exactly the same kind of beads we're doing now. And there's a beautiful close-up. And this is when we start getting some real good colors in this one. We got the greens, we have 2 colors of blue. We got, not only the coral, but we also get some white and coming in here soon. That's not pearl, but actual white comes in soon. As well as black, and then there's some brown and some more gold. And this was on a silk base. It's always on silk. But again, this is on there's usually a parchment further down, This one has fabric, I think it's on top of the parchment. And then that was attached to the silk. So it looks like they did it on linen over top of parchment and then trimmed it and then attached it to silk. But there's still parchment underneath there. Let's see, anything else big? That's a good shot. And I like here because everything else usually works in lines, but for the curly hair, they actually tried to make it look curly, and that's one of the few times I've seen them do that. Because normally they're just sort of following, just trying to fill the shape in, like the wings, just following the shape of the wings, but they actually made the hair curly, which I think is adorable. This is, let's see, the second half of the 1300s. So it'd be the, oh, I might have this in the wrong sentence. Oraltum, Red Atlas, Yep, just they're only mentioning the coral and the pearl and the glass. Okay, so it's like that's just a huge altar hanging. And then, you know, you think about mention this hanging on a wall above an altar with the candles lit up, and you have these shiny, essentially sequins, for lack of a better word, these bracteates that are studding and you can just imagine how this sparkled and how fantastic this looked. Plus, you know, beads, you know, you might have some facets on the beads, like, you know, three cuts. They did some things like three cuts. You will find some faceted ones occasionally, whether it's from, you know, on purpose or not, I'm not sure, but you know, the three cuts are actually pretty close to some of the beads that they're using. Let's see. Let's go over here. This is the other piece I saw at the V&A. If you know that the things the priests wear, they have those tabs on the backs of their miters. They have those long things that go down the back. That's, I think that's one of these. And you get I got some really good detail shots here. Unfortunately, it was 20 years ago. And my brand new digital camera was actually killed by ghosts. Not kidding. In the British Museum, coming out of the Mummy Hall, something unseen grabbed my camera out of my hands and threw it to the floor. So I had to use my video camera for the visit, which is okay because my video camera at that point got me better macro than what my regular camera would have gotten me. But yeah, it grabbed my camera and it threw it about 15 feet in front of me. I was standing still. That was something else. I actually had to ask people, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that happens a lot." Like, "Oh, great, thanks." But again, this is another one where you can see some of the underwork, and this one had a crown, a silver crown that had been cut and worked, and it was laying on top of the open work there, and you can see the outline of the crown right here, and that got plucked off because, well, you know, silver. And you can see all these couching stitches that were holding down, again, these, you know, the pearl beads that they were looting. This is a good close up. And you can see they were trying to get each one individual ones. Some of them were tacked down individually, but most of them were running in lines with couching. So then you just cut one line and go boop, and you pull the string and out they come. But there's just, I got some amazing shots. That's actually a pretty good one. And I have too many on this one, actually. I'm going to move on because we still have a lot of stuff to see. As far as secular stuff, well, I got to do this one next. This one is spectacular. This is, again, done on parchment, and then it has been glued to a wooden, to a wooden, what's called a ciborium, or a host, basically a host vessel. And You can just see, and then they have leather on the bottom they stitched up to hold it on. And at some point I'm guessing this was probably had gold or something probably woven around it, and it was, or bead pearls or something, and it was stripped off. But it's just fantastic, and I have more views of it, I believe. Yeah, I do. There's the back side of it. And they got fleur-de-lis at the bottom. And just spectacular piece. And there's some of that silver or the gold work that's laid on. You can see some of the studs here that haven't been removed. Some of those plaques and plates that haven't been removed. There's a few of them on the front. And you can see how they use the larger beads as an accent. And this was second half of 1300s again. And this hat belongs to, this is the one piece in this century that is not German. And that's what kind of makes it mysterious to me. Because where did it come from? It's Spanish. And I've never seen any other Spanish beadwork. This is the sole piece of Spanish beadwork. And this was found in a coffin, and on its owner. And you can see that it's silk, well, probably linen and leather, and the lions are embroidered, and then everything else is beaded with coral and um, pearl on a leather and wood base. And there's gloves that go with this as well. No, sorry, the gloves go to somebody else. I'm sorry. There is a belt though. Let me get in that piece. Let me go down. So here's all the hat, and then here's the belt. And unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of great pictures of the belt, but you can see there's a piece of what we call heraldry it's really good, because that's really hard stuff to do that small. And then this bracket here hanging off this, if those who don't know, that's a purse, basically like a purse bracket. You'd hang your purse, put your purse strings through it, and hang your purse through the strings, and then hang off that piece of metal, so it wouldn't ruin your belt, wouldn't pull your belt down too much. But just absolutely gorgeous. And then there was also, this is the surcoat that he wore, not beaded, but you sort of get to see it with the belt together. And that came out of a grave. That's the only Spanish piece. And then I said, I got these gloves and these shoes from Frederick II. Again, that's just pearls, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, because we got so much more. So anyway, so that's the 13th century. You can see where the seed beads are coming in, and they're really going crazy. Let's see, let's go back up here. Let's go to, come on, 14th. And this one, and each century we get more and more. Like I said, and this here is probably, this is what I was talking about. This is one of the first times you find bugle beads. And this says that they are made of crystal, and which would be quartz. So these are quartz bugle beads. And unfortunately, that's the only picture I have of this bag. Let's see, what's good to talk about here? Okay, this one. This is the one from Keb in Czechoslovakia. I think it's probably the finest example of medieval beadwork. It's intact. It has not been ravaged. It has not been plundered. It's not really damaged. It's kind of astounding. Let me see if I can open a new tab. I got a bigger picture of it. No, I don't. But the scale of it is, I want to say it's 190 centimeters or something. I have to check out what does it say? Let me see here. I've got a lot of pictures of it. Somewhere I have info. I can't remember right this second. But it is massive. I recently talked to a researcher who had just come back from seeing it in person, and she says it's bigger than you even think. I want to say she said it was like 8 feet long, something like that. And but it's absolutely immaculate. I mean, there's some pieces where the beads have where like down this around the corners here, the edges, some of the beads have started falling off, but it wasn't looted, you know. Just the thread is just given way with age, and it's just remarkable. I don't know what I'd do if I got to see it in person. And here this is where this has no pearls. This is all white seed beads. This is when we first get the white seed beads. And of course, swastikas were a good symbol then. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just remarkable what kind of shape it's in. And that's some actually I think that's embroidery. I don't think that's painted. I think that might be embroidery, but there were some faces that were painted as well. Unfortunately, some pictures are out of books and some pictures are out of play. This is a book that's available that's about this piece, and I've got it on the shelf over there. But it's got some good that's a decent picture in and of itself. But I always try to provide every picture I can find of it. And if it's a black and white, it's a black and white. Often a black and white will give you better detail, sometimes than a color. And so at least you're getting to see the detail. But it's just, I mean, look at that. That's just absolutely perfect. It's just amazing. This is on my bucket list to see before I die. I just want to go in and look at it and cry for about a half hour, and then I'll be back home. Go back home. Um, so the 14th century, it steps it up. They get even more grandiose with the pearl work as well. Let's take a look at this one. This miter here. I mean, that's absolutely astounding.
We have a question about what museum is this in?
Um,
The
okay,
one on the left talking about?
the this one is in
Yeah.
the Keb Cathedral Museum. It's been in the same
Shelley,
church
Zoom.
for 700
Oh, I
years.
don't know what you did.
Where's Zoom?
There, keep going.
Yeah, this is
I'm
in
sorry.
no, it's fine. There's a cathedral museum in Keb, Czechoslovakia, and it's in the same church that it's always been in. And so it has never traveled really at all. Maybe it might have left during World War II and come back. They might have tried to hide it to protect it, but yeah, this church right here is where it came from, Clint Clara, and so you have to go to that particular museum to see that one. But the ones and otherwise the museum I talked about earlier was Halberstadt, and that's in northern Germany, and they've got just like 15 pieces of beadwork. It's astounding. I think this is another one that's in Halberstadt. I think that was mostly plates though. This one has a lot. I have a lot of these bracteates on this particular century. There's just a bunch of them. Let me see. And this is another great one. This one is actually Italian. This is one of the few Italian pieces I get. But then when you think about the location of Italy in regards to Germany, it's not out of the ordinary to think there might have been some German nuns who were doing work for Italy or or were living in Italy in a convent down there. So it's not it's not out of the ordinary to think that that this was probably the work of German nuns in Italy. Um,
Hey, Jen,
yeah.
we have a couple of questions and then I have a follow-up.
Okay.
Jan and Jamie would both like to know what kind of thread they use. And Jan, on top of that,
Linen,
with linen.
linen, linen, exclusively linen.
So the thread, it wasn't a cotton, it was a linen embroidery.
Linen. They
thread.
wouldn't have had cotton. Cotton
Yeah,
wasn't
no,
around
that was
yet.
a new world. So
Yeah.
how about needles? Do we know anything about needles?
Yeah, basically, when you're looking at the parchment, you'll see that the holes are these elongated, like little slits. And if you look at a medieval needle, um, I don't know if did any of you do embroidery as well?
Quite a few of us do, yeah.
Have you ever seen a tulip bullion needle? Um, the back end of the needle is flat, and that's how they would make needle. They'd take their wire, they'd stiffen it, they'd sharpen it, and then they'd hammer the eye area flat, and then they'd punch a hole for the for the thread. And then hold on, excuse me. And when you pull that through parchment, it makes an elongated slit. Um, looks just exactly like what we see on the pieces. Let me go back and see if I can find you a picture. Um, from, let's see, it's going to be over here. Let's see if I can find a picture in my pictures that shows the elongated holes. I don't know if it shows here. But having seen it up close in person, I can tell you that yeah, the holes just look like little slits. And and that's what they used for, like I said, for the couching. Um, so I think they would they'd string their beads on, and then they'd couch over them. And then I think if they had to do individuals, they'd have to unthread the needle, put the bead on, thread the needle again, go down, because there's no way they could make a needle as fine um as what they needed to, for because like I said, the beads are basically the same beads that we're using now for all intents and purposes. Does that answer it?
And they weren't steel. What kind of metal do we think?
Oh no, they had steel.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah, or brass and
Mhm.
steel. Yeah, and um they had metal, and they had wire work and stuff like that. So they used wire for a lot of things. And but yeah, so you'd see I if I could if I thought I could find it, I could show you because I have one somewhere. And back there probably. But it might be in the one that's in the living room. The needles are like I've bought some that are handmade needles, and they're like this big. And they're teeny tiny, and but they are flat in the back, and and they're very, very thin, but it does work. But like I said, they wouldn't be able to go through the beads. You'd have to thread the thread first, and then needle it.
Oh, that's
Bead
cool.
thread first, then needle it. That's what I mean.
Thank you.
Okay, so hold on, let's go back. Was there another question?
No, just the needles and the thread. So,
Yeah. Cotton didn't exist. Silk, I don't think they did have silk, obviously, because you're doing it on silk cloth, but silk is so fine. And as we all know, beads are not exactly always smooth on the inside. It's like, with the cooling of the beads and and even though they get like, fire turned and stuff, and they get smooth, glass still has like a kind of a cuticle to it. And nothing can make a thread, fray faster than glass sometimes. And so I think when I'm looking at the threads, it's definitely a very long staple, and it looks awful. From everything that I can find, I can't find them using anything other than linen. And you can find really fine linen thread that you can use for beadwork. I've done some work with it, and it works fine. I usually will run it through uh the silicone I'll run through silicone putty first before to make it nice and slick. Um, but otherwise, here's another piece that I think is a standout, just because it's just in good shape.
Jen, I think you just turned on your
I didn't touch
volume on something.
I didn't touch anything.
Oh, no, it's gone. Sorry, maybe it was me. My apologies, everyone.
It's okay. Um, I think this piece is particularly interesting too, just because it's just so bright. There's no pearls at all really on this one. Well, maybe actually on the faces, maybe. Um, but just so many colors. And that's one thing I like about that. Let's see, where's the piece that I wanted to.
I'm going to interrupt again.
Oh,
We have
sure.
a question about what the parchment was made from. Is it paper or
Oh,
is it?
no, parchment was hide parchment. It's skin. Um, what they would use to make books would be tanned skin of either calves, uh, goats, or cat or beef, and and then they sand it and shave it and get these really fine pages. That's what parchment originally was skin. And that's what they're using here is natural hide parchment. They didn't really have paper in the 1300s yet. That doesn't come around for a couple hundred years. And to be honest, the paper wouldn't have given it the support.
No, that would have.
But just absolutely gorgeous stuff. I'm going to go ahead and just skim to the next century here. And this is where it starts to get a little more interesting. We start to get into more secular pieces where people are, the women especially. And one thing that sticks out is in the German period, there's about 4 pieces where women have these ornate sleeves. And again, it's mostly pearl work, but this is also mostly just portrait work. This is pretty much where I try to limit myself, is I try to stick with portraits. Because at least then it's probably based off of something real. But again, this is all German. All of this is German for the most part. And it doesn't go anyplace else, honestly, for another 100 to 200 years. Let me see, anything stand out here? Here's another sleeve of embroidery and pearl work. But yes, and then here, I think everybody's seen this painting. I think most people have seen this painting. I actually recreated this necklace, and unfortunately, it's in the basement somewhere, and I can't find it right now. This is made with black seed bead and gold. I used bronze, bugle beads, and the only way I found possible to make this necklace work was using wire. It just did not. I tried everything in the world to not use anything other than wire, but wire is the only thing that worked. And then you do 3 rungs of ladder wire work, and then I connected it with pearls between the layers. It holds its shape It wears nicely. It absolutely worked out fantastic. And I have a picture. Let me see. I have a picture on my site somewhere. Hold on. Let me see here. Yeah, here's the necklace that I recreated. Oh, it's not big enough. And I just did simple loops and pearls on the ends. But yeah, I did it, and it's in a pizza box in a box downstairs. Um, but yeah, you had to do that with wire, and I did some wire work for a while. You know, this laurel and this was fillet, and did some other stuff for a while with wire work when I was in that period. Um, but that was really fascinating to try to break that down. I tried about 7 different ways to make that necklace, and nothing worked until I started using wire. And that's where that's one of the first instances of wire work with beads. And then in the 17th century, they go crazy with it. And I'll show you that here too in a second. But here you see just lots and lots and lots of pearls, um, and some gold, uh, just amazingly intricate headdresses with embroidery and again, still lots of church work. But not so much of the glass seed at this point. The glass seed seems like that was mostly in the 13s, and I'm not exactly sure why. Uh, you don't. At least we haven't found any more of it. In the 16th, it starts to really. This is when England starts to get involved along the way. But just still mostly Germany, but later on, England sort of starts getting in there. And I personally think this hat is kind of amazing. And you get some more, and this is actually a Russian miter, not a hat so much. And I think it might have Russian text going around that area there, but I'm not positive. Um, but so the 16th, in the 16th, we start getting out of the church and going more into the rich noble peoples and the royals' homes. Just there's another beaded sleeve and another a beaded headdress. Just this one I need to take out because this is a more of an allegorical, but I did it because of the trim. Because it probably did have an actual model on that one. So now we're going to go to the 16th. There's a little bit of stump work over here, but not a whole lot of bead work, but I included it anyway. So we're on 16th, let's go to 17th. 17th where everything explodes and where England gets involved. And I have one of these bags, which you'll see on the camera. I'm going to be showing that to you here in a moment. I had the chance to buy one last year. And so I was like, okay. So now it's all mine. The things they did the most in this time period was boxes, portraits, bags, and baskets. And there's it's just tons of them. That's a bag, basket, and not so much church work. I've got mirrors. I mean, this mirror is spectacular. Do I have more pictures of that? I don't, unfortunately. I got other mirror. I got 3 mirrors in here though. This one might be the one I'm thinking of. This is all beadwork. Look at that. Isn't that incredible? And here's a close-up. And then that is also tortoise shell on the frame. So it's real tortoise shell on the frame. That was some money. This is also when the 3D started coming into it. And those of you who do um, any stump work or any weave stitching will probably love this one. But there's just tons of these baskets, and we're not really sure what they were for. I don't think they were like, exactly sitting around with fruit on them. Some people said that they were more of like a wedding thing. You put flowers in them and present them with flowers. So I'm not really sure. And then there's boxes, lots of little what we call casks or caskets, um, or chests usually, and just absolutely astounding. The colors on this is probably one of my favorites just because the amount of colors on it. And then this is the earliest that I find the striped seed beads. They do quite a bit with striped seed beads in this later period. And I'm going to close off talking about the bags at the top of the page. But I'm going to hit a couple other things here because I'm going to show you my bag if you'd like to see it. Okay, this is one spectacular piece of clothing. One of the few pieces of actual non-church clothing that is still around. This is out of Hungary, of all places. And look, I mean, this skirt is, I don't know, 2 feet probably of coral work. And coral all up on the bodice as well. Just absolutely amazing that it's in such good shape. And see, here you can see the striations of coral beads. That's how you can tell that they're coral. Hungarian dress. I think this was a wedding dress. Wedding dresses weren't exactly white back then. That didn't come around until the Victorian era. I'm looking at the screen in case anybody has anything else to say. But yeah, this is a spectacular costume piece that I was amazing that I found. Honestly, I was stunned that I found it because it's really the only one of the only pieces of clothing with beadwork like that. Usually normally what I can find is like something like this where it's just um a bodice that's sort of just studded with like sequins or seed beads here and there. Um and that's usually the most I can usually find.
Jen?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have two questions. One of them I've answered a little bit on the chat, but
Okay.
maybe you can answer it for the whole group a little bit better. The first question is, what is stump work?
Um Stump work is a three-dimensional embroidery. You can actually like the woman who was showing the 3D flowers, that's stump work. But when it's still based on like an embroidered ground, usually they'll pat it from behind. So they'll usually have like another layer behind it or something, and they'll cut into it after they stitch around it to establish like, an outline. They'll go behind it and they'll stuff wool wadding into it and then stitch it up from the backside, and then they'll do embroidery on top of that. Or they'll embroider it and then stuff it from behind, either way. But it's stuffed embroidery essentially. And so you get this a three-dimensional. Let me see if I can find this would be the century to do it. Let me find one of these.
And the other question was, how much do you think that fiesta dress weighs?
Oh God. Probably 50 pounds. The fabric's really heavy. The beads, we all know how much coral beads weigh. They're not light. Um, I'd probably guess, the whole dress as a whole, including any hoops and anything underneath there and all it was probably 50 pounds. I'm guessing. Maybe 30 at the absolute least. Um,
And remember, guys, there were also like 12,000 undergarments under there
yeah,
too.
and they'd
So
have hoop skirts and bustles and hip padding. And usually the hip padding, they'd have these rolls that go around their waist like a big baby, those baby booper things, those big baby padded pillow things. You'd have one of those around their waist. And that was not only to make yourself look more hippie, but to give you some something to bear the weight of the heavy skirts instead of having it all squish onto your body, having the stuffing hold the weight up. And skirt fabric is, if you ever have gone to a fabric store and picked up a bolt of upholstery fabric, it is not light. And a lot of these heavy damask silks and stuff are very thick, and they've got to be to hold to hold the seed beads on. And plus, it's probably two layers behind that they're using to hold the weight, and not just the front layer. It's not just through one layer that they're stitching through. It's probably two or three layers of linen that they're probably stitching through on those skirts. So it's probably 8 yards of fabric times three, and then you have the beads, and then you have everything else that's involved in the dress, and it's insane. um this is one of the weirdest pieces. We talked about ornate pearl work earlier. This is just absolutely crazy, and guys, again, this is one of the few Spanish things that I've seen. That doesn't mean that the girl was Spanish. She could have been German and painted by a Spaniard. I don't, honestly, I'm not even sure with the way they traded women around. Um, let's see if I can find a good stump work example. Probably have to do it in the baskets. This frame
oh,
might
and
be
Jan has a question about that dress too. She wants to know
okay.
was it made by one person or was it
Honestly, don't.
community?
Honestly, nobody knows. I don't think anybody has any clue. Usually dresses were usually made. Um, you know, you had your seamstresses. If you were rich, you usually had a couple seamstresses on staff. If you were royal, you had royal seamstresses. Um, but it was usually a workshop would make dresses. So I'm sure it was probably the effort of several people. Because people today like to think that you make things by yourself. It wasn't the case back then. This person would make the thread, you go to him and get the thread, you go this person and you get the cloth, you go this person and you get the beads, you go to this person and you get the parchment or whatever, and there'd be several people involved in every step of the process. And then if you're an embroiderer working in a royal household, or you're going to have essentially interns and trainees that are going to be working with you. You're going to have apprentices and just people who say, "Hey, take my kid, teach her how to do stuff." And then you've got foster kids essentially. You're teaching, you have working for you, and so I guarantee it was not just one person. I'm sure somebody probably made the clothing and somebody else embroidered them, and probably two or three people probably worked on the bodice alone, because there's so much involved in a bodice. Having been involved in making one of those before, it's you kind of need two people. You have to have someone to kind of mark things, while someone else sort of pulls things to mark things. You have to have like five hands at certain points, um especially when you're getting fitted for them. So here we have, you see we have lots of these little bags. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the bags now, because I think we're starting to get towards time. I just want to talk about them real quick. So you had these, to that, I'm going to go to this by type and go to, hold on, sweet bags. The thing that's interesting about these, I think these may be one of the first times that you find sort of proof that maybe there were pattern books. I know they had pattern books, but I think this actually might have been kits. Because if you look here on this top row, this one here, and then you have the one next to it, and then this one over here, all have the same design for the most part. They're using the same color beads. They got the same, the tree, which is, there's acorns on it, so it's supposed to be an oak tree. You have the same oak tree. You've got birds to the side with little squares in their wings. For all intents and purposes, these are kind of all the same bag, and they're from 3 different years, made from by 3 different people in 3 different places. And here's another oak tree down here and a similar bird, and you look at a lot of these, you'll see that there's all the same colors. There's a root beer brown, and there's yellow, and there's white, and there's green, and there's a couple blues, and there's black, and there's white, and that's pretty much exclusively it. Sometimes you'll see, a couple different designs. I'll try to get all these into the frame here. You'll see a couple different designs, like, this one's just an acorn pattern, and this one's, got the S's, and this one's just just a different sort of pattern entirely. But then you get back to the ones where you have the birds and the trees, and they all sort of look alike. And this was like a 30-year period, like 1608 to like 1636 sort of area. And it looks like it was very common. And what we think they was alms bags, was what we think they were. They're also called sweet bags because there was a whole thing about, they would carry sweet herbs with them, and they'd have the bag, kind of like a pomander. Well, pomanders are different than an alms bag. All these bags talk about, like, remember the poor. About 6 of these bags say remember the poor. And about 3 of them say gift from a friend. And and then some of them have some Latin and stuff, but there's overall a theme about poor and money. And so we think that these might have been the bags that maybe they took to church, and that they would give their church offerings to, and then also would give to the poor on the way out of the church. And then you had, like, your fancy little purse to make you look, like, charitable and graceful. And they're all about the same size. They're all like 6 by 4, and but just the fact that, like, right here at the top line alone, there's 3 of them with essentially the same pattern and the same name, remember the poor. It's astounding. And here's no one, remember the poor. Different. There's the tree, a little bit different, but still the same thing. And I got talking last month with a guy named Trevor Jones, who is a professor at Oxford, and he has a big interest in these. And he's a professor of medieval folklore and art history or something like that. And we spent about 4 days going back and forth about these. And he's more excited about mine than he is about some of these. So let me switch over. Do you want to switch over to the other one? Hold on. Let's switch over to the one over here, to my bag. And I'm going to try to get that on. Let's see, stop sharing, right?
Yes, there you go. Stop sharing, and then you can.
Do I start sharing over here?
Let's see, you already have the other camera, so we just have to, Rochelle or somebody, can we spotlight the other camera? I think she has a second one. There it is. Great,
Okay.
thank you.
But I'm turning my extra light on. I brought a little extra light to help a little bit. One second. Didn't mean to unmute. Okay. All right. So here's my little girl here. Get her open so I can see her. Come on. Okay. Well, definitely I'm not going to get it. She is 6 inches by 4 inches roughly. Almost made entirely of like size 11 beads. They're almost all perfect. We can, let's see if I can get this different angle here. Inside is calf skin or kid skin. Right there, it's very soft. And there's a line of stitching right here that goes in through the leather. And that is what holds on the beadwork. I think they did the beadwork separately, and then they slid it up over the bag and then stitched it over. I don't know if you can tell. I can probably go to my pictures. But hold on. Let's switch over again to stop sharing. Is that all I have to do? Okay, hold on. Okay, so my girl's bag is right here. I got some good macro shots here. Okay, can everybody see that? Can you switch back to me? Okay. Can you switch? Oh, let me go back to my screen. That's right. Hold on.
It's split screen, so we can see both.
Yeah, I have to share the screen. Hold on a second. Share. Okay. So here's some close-up pictures that I got with my macro. iPhones rock for macro. Here's that stitch ring across the top. And you can see the stitches coming out of the beads and going into that beadwork. Going into that braid work that's going through that braid is the one that's doing all the heavy lifting of holding those beads onto the fabric. And it's all just right angle weave. All of it's right angle weave. But you see those stitches going up from the beads into that braid. And here you can see this is why we think it's linen. It doesn't look shiny. It doesn't look because you're not able to do a burn test on it, it's a very weedy thread, and linen does that because well it is weeds. And this one has some damage, and they've laced it back together with dark blue thread. I'm not sure when that is, but my goal is I'm going to learn right angle weave, which I've never done. So this will be fun. I'm going to learn right angle weave, and I'm going to make a bag, and then so I can learn how to repair this one. I've been talking with some museum curators, and they're like, yeah, if you think you can do it, be fine. But there's some more close-ups on on that linen thread, and you can see all the different, yeah, all the different beads. And at some point, I'm going to run a vacuum cleaner, a gentle vacuum in there with a paintbrush and try to get out some of that dust. When I found her, I'd been contacted by a guy out of England who went to an antique shop. He was on vacation in Norfolk. He lived in Birmingham, and he says, I found this at a charity shop, and they found it in a dresser that they had bought at auction, and they just threw it into a display case, and it was getting kicked around, and he couldn't bear to see it like that. And so he brought it home to research it, and he found me, and I bought it for him at cost. And then a friend of mine was going to England that summer, last summer, and she picked it up for me and brought it home. And then when she was driving from Georgia to Pennsylvania for something, I met her in Columbus, and met her in Columbus, Ohio, and picked it up and brought her home. And it's been quite the journey. I call her Miss Killam, and I think I've actually done enough genealogy research, and I might actually have found the right person, because that name Killam or Kellam comes from a specific part of England at that period. It's like a very tight little area, and I think I've actually found her. So which is kind of amazing. Not positive, but maybe. But there's some more of the stitching. You see just how pristine it is. And this bag actually, when you saw some of the others, this one's in some of the best shape of most of the bags. It is the most intact. The fabric at the top is actually in much better shape than a lot of the other ones are. I'm rather astounded. Here's a little bit of one of the holes. One thing mine doesn't have, they would usually have um, 3 to 4 or 5 tassels, usually along the bottom, usually 3, one in each corner and one in the middle. And I think this was where one of the tassels was attached, and it probably got ripped off, or worked its way loose or something, and so it kind of ripped the thread there. That's probably where the tassel was attached. And there you can see I love my camera. I can get really good pictures with this one.
Did we answer this already? We had a question about how old the bag is, and also whether or not
The bag
hemp
is from
ever used.
1627. It's marked right on there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, let me find you a picture of the side. This is the one side.
Oh, look at that.
And the other side has her name. So hold on, there's one side, there's the other side.
And then the other question was, do you know if hemp thread was ever used?
I don't think it was. I think at that period they were probably still using, pretty much limiting that to like rope, because it's a very coarse thread. It's at least in this period, they weren't doing a whole lot of refining of hemp too much. They didn't do, linen and silk and wool are pretty much your standards for pretty much all medieval and Elizabethan clothing for the most part. They didn't really have anything else. Linen, silk and wool, pretty much. And linen was the larger part of it, because you can get extremely gorgeous, fantastic fine linen.
And it dyes beautifully too.
Oh, it does. And it gets softer the more you wear it.
Maggie says, what an incredible collection of photos you have. Thanks so much for sharing them, as well as your encyclopedic knowledge of this subject. I'll definitely be visiting your website.
Oh, thank you. I try to leave most things up to people to sort of, I put as much info as I can. I try not to do a whole lot of preaching about what I think happened, or I try to let people sort of come to their own conclusions on some stuff. But as far as the church stuff, I know what happened there. I mean, that was like, because that was all pretty much nun work. Um, yeah, there's a one bit of damage. Is there one of the holes ripped out? Um, but this is silk satin, in case you were wondering what fabric at the top is. And you can see that it has a linen underweft. That's those vertical white threads. It had linen underneath and then silk on top. So it was a silk float, as they call it, I guess. And there's the satin. And I thought maybe they would, that they were just it was a messed up edge, but no, they just did a blanket stitch going across the top. That's a nice picture of the satin too. I was trying to get real good pictures of everything. But so yeah, that's my girl. I'm very proud of her. Um,
Wow, this has been great.
I'm still stunned that I have her.
She's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing all your information.
Hey, if anybody else has any last minute questions, toss them up. Because I have so much, it's hard to hit everything. I was just trying to sort of hit the highlights and show you sort of the time frame of like how the tastes moved and where they went into.
Jan says, what an interesting presentation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, there's so much out there. I got a little bit of this later too, but there's just so much out there. It's sometimes I forget, I'll add a piece and go, oh, I already have that piece. So gotten to the point where I don't remember what I have anymore. But if anybody has any questions, certainly hit me up anytime. I hardly sleep anymore, so I lost my husband almost 2 years ago, and so sleeping anymore is a suggestion, and if I usually do sleep, it's usually in the afternoon. So if anybody ever has questions, don't ever think, oh, it's past 11, I couldn't ask. No, go ahead, I'm up, don't worry about it. I'm there.
Rhonda says, thank you for focusing on bead embroidery. Fantastic.
Yeah, not many people pay attention. That's one thing I try to do. A lot of people pay attention to the big beads, and one thing I find with museum people and archaeologists, they usually don't care about the seed beads. They're always more interested in the large necklace beads and the lampwork beads. And I've seen archaeologists, like, in Egypt, there's a beautiful beaded kind of like a cover over the mummy, and they'll go, oh, we got to get to that mummy, and they'll just shove the beads off of it, because they're seed beads, who cares, and it's like, oh. And so but yeah, for a long time I was told, no, beadwork like that isn't, period, you can't do that. They didn't do it. I'm like, sure they did. And then I proceeded to find 230 some pieces. So
Still pretty full from what I ate after school, but I just.
well, thank you very much. This was a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh, this was just absolutely amazing. And we're so inspired, and we're really just.
I wish I had something a little bit more, I guess, formal, but I'm not really a formal person. So.
Not either.
Yeah.
We're not either, no. As you can see by the group behind me here, we're rather
Gathering of brains.
well, I was gonna say animated characters,
Well, that's
but
Animated works.
and so
I had fun looking at your website last week, so it was really cool.
Yeah,
yeah.
I
Oh my
always
God.
been spotting new stuff, and if I find a new picture, if you go back in and you go back into, like, the everything page, and you go, oh, what's that doing up there? Well, I found new pictures. Whenever I find new pictures of something, I change the publish date so it moves back to the top of the list, so there's something new on it. And I didn't even show that newest piece. You guys will have to go look at that. the beaded basket is
Yeah, the
freaking
basket.
amazing.
Wow, that is kind of cool. We do 3-dimensional work, so I'd like to.
Yeah, I meant to bring that up. Let me pull it up real quick for people. Look at this.
That's really good.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that is so cool.
I did see that.
Wow, that is fabulous.
And so there's
Wow.
lots of pictures. I have every picture I could find on there.
Looks like your mom's-
And just absolutely amazing.
So do they use
Wire.
wire? I mean, how
And
did
then
they
it-
make it
Yeah,
structural?
I'm pretty sure that's probably wire. It looks like if you look at this corner right here,
They use netting or something. Okay.
no, it looks like wire to me right here.
The wire there, but the hammer part maybe.
Yeah, it looks like wire. Um, and they had the capability to make wire like that because they would have, especially like even in the 1400s, they'd have these huge hennons and these huge veils that would go up like this, and those would be edged with wire. So they had the capability to make wire because wire you just draw it smaller and smaller and smaller through increasingly smaller holes, and so they could make wire. And yeah, it's definitely wire. See that right there?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, but yeah, and there's so much more on the site that I didn't even touch. I got like 4 mirrors. The mirrors are incredible. The boxes and the basket section, the baskets and boxes. That section I think is astounding. There's just so many cool pieces. Like here it is. You go to item type, uh, baskets, boxes, and books, and then bags, purses, and pouches. And but some of these boxes are just incredible. Um, just you know, it's astounding. But yeah, go through and have fun. Um, like I said, I tried to provide every single picture that I can find. And one good place to find beadwork, believe it or not, is at auction sites. Like Sotheby's. I've gotten so many off of Sotheby's. The big named auction houses are a great place to look for beadwork, especially like Indian beadwork, um, because a lot of it's is so collectible, and you can find really cool pin cushions too from the the late 1800s, early 1900s, beaded pin cushions and stuff, and which are really cool.
And speaking of pin cushions, remember guys, on the 12th, Jen will be going ahead and teaching a embroidered pin cushion, which you can add beads to.
Simple embroidery. I mean, it's like embroidery 101. Honestly, if you can do beadwork, you can do this. If you've never really embroidered, it's the stitches I'm using it's just, so easy. Honestly, it's simple. And bring a chopstick, 2 things of either floss or pearl cotton. And if you have variegated thread, this is a great project for the variegated thread that you always buy because it's so pretty and you never use for anything. It's perfect for that. But you want like 2 colors of felt maximum. 1 color is fine. 1 color is perfectly fine. If you want 2, that's fine too. Scissors, fiber fill, needle that'll fit whatever thread you're using, and a pop bottle cap. That's what I use. Just the cap off of your bottle of Pepsi. That's what we're doing it with. So you have time to go to the drive-through. If you don't drink pop, go to the drive-through and get one.
Because of why?
Thank you so much. This was such a joy.
I hope
Thank you,
everybody
thank you,
found something that they want
thank
to
you.
go deep dive on. Thank you.
I tell ya, this is an honor, and so I'll tune into your pin cushion after I get back from Japan. But oh
Have a
my
good time.
gosh,
Oh,
thank
do me a
you!
favor.
I'm so excited. Follow
at
me on.
7-Eleven. Eat at 7-Eleven. From what I hear, 7-Eleven is like the creme de la creme of like fast food in Japan. Yeah,
Well, that's where they
And
tell
the
you to
machines.
go get the ATM machine to get your yen out of the
Yeah.
machine. Is that
Yeah.
7-Eleven?
From what
So
I understand, the food at 7-Eleven is fantastic. That's what I hear.
I
Food on
tell
the
you,
go,
so
that's where
you
you should
never
go.
know. It'll be loads of fun and it'll be a great adventure. So we're looking forward to seeing you all at our next on the 12th. Bye.
Bye.
All right, I think my lovely is ready to go.
Oh, and as a
Which one?
reminder, guys,
Taking you
as a reminder, on May
Valleys, I'm in Roseville
fifth,
for now.
we are
It was
meeting
nice to offer me a ride home. My husband
here
dropped me off.
again with
Even again at
Stephanie
nighttime. And
Goff of Bijou